The reason for that is that there's a huge porcelain ceramic tile factory just behind it. That's what Rosselkheimer is famous for. So using the materials that they make in Rosselkheimer, the ceramic tiles, we're now covering this 1 kilometer long building with ceramic tiles. If they'd had a stainless steel factory behind it, I'm sure it would have been covered in stainless steel, but unfortunately it's ceramic tiles. This is our prototype. You'll see in the front here is a little film crew. It's actually a model, it's not the actual building. I don't think the building will ever get built, actually. But during the whole process, we had a film crew filming us. In all of the meetings, all of the design meetings we had, also with the client. And that's one tip you might want to take away with you. If ever you have a project with an influential man who thinks he's very important and likes to make decisions, always take a film crew with you into the meetings, because if there's one thing important people like to do is to say yes in front of a camera. They really don't like saying no. They'll say yes to almost anything if you've got a camera there. Our mock-up in the factory in Dubai, we always make mock-ups. This is in aluminium framing, and each of those panels is ceramic tiles made in the Rosselkheimer tile factory. Well, we come to Saudi Arabia. It's the big project we have being constructed at the moment. This man here, you may not know him, but I know him quite well. He's called Mr. Juma, and he is the president of the Saudi Aramco Oil Company. Saudi Aramco Oil Company own all of the oil in Saudi Arabia, so if Mr. Juma gets upset, we all get very cold. He's a very passionate man, and he's working with the King of Saudi Arabia, King Abdullah, to put culture on the map in Saudi Arabia. They're building a cultural center. Sounds like a very simple thing to do to us in Europe. We have them all over the place, theaters, libraries, commonplace. Saudi Arabia, they don't have cultural centers. They don't have theaters, they don't have cinemas. When we're finished, this building will have the first public cinema in Saudi Arabia. It will have the first theater where men and women can sit together and see a performance. It's quite a bold move. It's obviously part of a move to make reform in this country. It's also a gift back to the people after 75 years of developing the oil fields. So this is our vision, or Mr. Juma's vision, for this cultural center. And the concept is really very simple. It's that everything can't take away one piece. Everything is held together. Each of the elements of the cultural center, whether it's the library, or the theater, or the cinema, or the museum, has its own shape, its own unique form. They're all like a series of pebbles, and they, just like in an arch, they hold each other together. If you take away one piece, it all falls down. That's metaphorically the case. If you take away the library, the cultural center falls down. If you take away the theater, the cultural center falls down. You can't take away pieces without losing the whole. But also, physically, if you take away a piece, then the whole building falls down. So the little piece at the top there we call the keystone is really holding it all together. If we take away that part of the building, the building will fall down. So I think, again, it's quite a good idea to have a concept where everything hangs together and you can't take away small pieces of it. Again, it's linking the past to the future, just like with the library. We're digging down into the earth of Saudi Arabia, into the roots of their culture, the roots of their wealth, where the oil comes from, and aspiring up to the future to a new possible cultural renaissance in Saudi Arabia. The building sits in a huge park. Not the park to the left that's existing and full of trees that need lots of water, but the park our building is sitting in is called a xeriscape. It's a desert landscape where we only use the desert plants that grow in Saudi Arabia without having lots of water and irrigation to keep them alive. We dig down into the ground to make the museum, using the very earth that we dig out to make the walls. So this is rammed earth walls that form the museum down in the ground. And at the bottom, we have the original valve, or the Christmas tree as it's called, from Lucky Well number 7, where they first found oil 75 years ago. There you can look up to the new buildings covered in steel. This is from the competition drawings that we had, where we're showing it really like a mirror finish on all the project. Inside, well, there's room for everything. Room for dinosaurs and exhibitions, for banquets and weddings. They're very happy about weddings there. theatres, education, fun deck on the top of the tower. And this is what it might look like when it's finished. We're obviously using the stainless steel covering, cladding of the buildings to contrast the desert and the earth that the rest of it's constructed from. Our competition drawings showed all this polished, highly polished mirror finish. We spent a long time looking at how we could construct this, what sort of materials we could use. The shapes are very complicated. They're really just like pebbles, natural shapes. They're curving in 2 directions. We thought of mesh and stainless steel, made our own meshes, weaving, doing lots of testing. This is our architect, Peter. He's the facade architect on the project. He's doing some sandblasting of some of our prototypes. Oh, you get involved in all sorts of things if you work with Snowheather. These are the models we've made. We've made a whole series of models, but these ones, as you can see, milled using our robot machine, milled out of aluminium. Like a mirror, shining. And the client loves it. All in love with these rocks, the cultural rocks. They have a website called Culture Rocks. But we were very skeptical, I think, of using panels of steel or titanium or aluminium that are curved in 2 directions, getting all the joints to work. So we really went back to basics and said, well, what's the easiest way to cover a very complex shape? The shapes are very complex. The easiest way to cover a complex shape is to use the simplest thing, which is a line or a piece of string. A line or a piece of string can be bent in 1 direction very easily, and you can wrap the most complex shape quite simply. The Saudi Aramco people loved it because they're using stainless steel tubes all over the place. That's what they do in their process. So they love the idea of stainless steel tubes. And the patterns you get when you start wrapping complex shapes become very interesting. But we started wrapping really where you have an opening. It might be a window or it might be a door. Then just coiling around to cover the whole shape. And you get very, very interesting patterns occurring that you don't have to design. This is not a thing we designed. We've just started to cover it with this simple coiling. And because you start in one place, in one direction, and it goes around the shape that's already there, these patterns start to develop. So each of the buildings has its own particular pattern because of the shape it has. Very much like your own thumbprint. If you look at your thumbprint, that's the sort of patterns we get automatically developing. We don't need to work with artists. This just happens. That's the model, the way it's going to be when it's finished. So the facade is really not a rain screen because it doesn't really rain in Saudi Arabia. It's a sunscreen. It stands about 1 meter away from the facade itself and shades the building from the sun. And is built up on a series of stainless steel tubes. Behind there are windows. There are many windows in the project. There are some windows. They form a different pattern. When we get to the windows, we simply flatten the tube to make it flat so that you can look through it and see how it becomes like a Venetian blind, shading from the sun, but allowing you to look out. Transitions from the round pipes to the flattened pipes. To make this work, we have to make a 3-dimensional computer model that has each of the pipes modeled precisely on the building itself. So these are some screenshots from our model. This is a parametric model, so that as we change the shape of the building, automatically the length and radius and curvature of the pipes get adjusted. Then this model then gets fed into 2 machines like this that are situated somewhere in Bavaria, and they're bending tubes 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We have a lot of tubes to bend. The machines are coupled up directly to the computer model. Each curve is precisely bent to a radius, and each pipe then gets a number, put together and transported to Saudi Arabia. We have about 350 kilometers of pipe to bend, so the machines are very busy at the moment. It's quite fascinating to watch. It's almost, you can just sit there and watch it for hours and hours. Good that he knows what he's doing. Anyway, I'll cut it short or Mark's lamp will start blowing. And then we get a whole series of pipes, all bent to very special radiuses, all of which will then fit together. Obviously, it's very hot. You need to allow for expansion. This is one of the joints between the pipes. Some of our drawings. Well, they're not our drawings now anymore. They've been taken over by the contractor, who is Seller in Munich. We worked together with a whole series of manufacturers to develop the cladding. It's not something that we just sat down and developed. So the first people we worked together with were GIG from Austria, who we knew from Alexandria days. The client then commissioned 5 companies to go ahead and make mock-ups and present proposals. So that was Premas Lisa, Seller, GIG, Wagner Bureau, and one more I can't remember. So around Europe, there are now 5 mock-ups of our building. So we should have made them all slightly different and put them together. So we get quite a fantastic building. But the project is now being developed as the cladding is developed by Seller. These are the transition pieces where you've got a seam in the joints where two patterns are coming together. This is really one of those window places where we see the round tubes transforming themselves into the flattened tubes to be able to look through. These drawings for one of the prototypes. And on the prototype, just that transition from the flat to the round. An awful lot of pipes, 350 kilometers. Some beautiful drawings. I can't get tired of looking at these drawings.